The measurements we need for this tutorial is the shoulder measurement, the bust measurement, the under bust measurement, the waist measurement, the full length, and the bust span measurement. To get your bust span measurement, you will divide your bust circumference by 12 and add 1 inch. Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel where I share beginners friendly fashion designs tutorials. Please click on the subscribe button and turn on the bell icon so you get a notification whenever I post a new video. Also, do not forget to like this video, comment and share it to your friends. This is the pattern paper I'll be using for this project. So it's folded into two like this. And I'll be using the top of this paper as my starting line. I'll enter my bust point measurement. Then I'll draw a straight line. Another measurement I'll enter is my under bust point measurement. And I'll connect a straight line. Then I'll enter my waist point measurement. I'll as well draw a straight line. So I'm going to use a marker to bolden these lines. I'll name this with my bust points, my under bust points, and my waist line. I'll enter my shoulder measurement divided by 2. And where I marked my shoulder measurement, I'll go down by 1 inch for shoulder slope. And then I'm going to mark my neck width so I can connect the shoulder slope. So the neck width I'll be working with is 4, and I'm going to mark that. So I'll connect the neck width to the shoulder slope. And then from the shoulder slope, I'm going to enter my armhole measurement. To get your armhole measurement, you divide your bust measurement by 6 and add 1.5, and that will give you your armhole measurement. So I'm going to mark my own armhole measurement. I'll come to this side and check if what I have here is the same with the shoulder measurements I marked, and it's the same. So I'm going to draw a straight line from the shoulder slope to the armhole measurement. Then I'll draw another line on this side. So I'll look for the center of this armhole measurement, and the measurement I have here is 8. So the midpoint is definitely going to be 4 inches. I'll mark 4 inches, and then where I mark the midpoint, I'll go in by half an inch and I'll mark it. I'm going to connect a straight line to the half an inch, starting from the shoulder. Then I'll come to this line, this my chest line. I'll enter my bust measurements divided by 4. And I'm going to draw a curve starting from the midpoint of my armhole to the bust measurement I just entered. That's my armhole curve. So we now have the armhole curve. The next thing I'll mark is the bust span measurement. So I'm going to enter the bust span measurement from the bust point to the waistline. To get your bust span measurement, you divide your bust measurement by 12 and add 1 inch. So I enter my bust span measurement. And I'll draw a line. The total that I want to enter here is 2 inches. And then that 2 inches, I'm going to divide it into 2 and enter it both sides, but not equal. First of all, I'll enter 0.75 inches towards the center front, only on the under bust point and the waistline. I'll draw a line. I've entered 0.75, remaining 1.25 inches. So I will come to this other side and enter 1.25 inches. And if I measure it, it's a total of 2 inches. And then I'll come to the bust point. I'll come down by half an inch at the bust point. I'm going to draw like a curve to connect the dart leg to that marking. I will draw it for the both side. I'll just use a marker to bolden the lines so you can see very clear. So now I'll come to the bust band line. From the bust point, I'll go up by half an inch and I'll connect it to the bust band line. So now I'll come to the armhole line where I marked the midpoint on the armhole line, not the curve, the midpoint of the armhole line. I'll draw a curve to connect it to the half inches I go up with at the bust band. So on this line, I'm going to mark half inch on both sides. After marking half inch on both sides at the armhole, I now use a curve ruler to draw a curve to connect it back to this half an inch I go up with. I'm going to replace the 1 inch that's on this line, the down line of this dart. From the armhole curve, you just go out by 1 inch. Already draw a line more. So you connect the 1 inch. I'm going to draw another curve. That's going to be the new armhole line. I'm just going to clean this center line off to get a clear picture of what I'm talking about. The next thing I'll do is to enter all my body circumference measurements. Okay, so I'll enter my bust measurements divided by 4 at the bust point. And then I'll come to the under bust point and enter my round under bust measurements divided by 4. And then I'm going to measure this dart, which is 2 inches, then I'll replace the dart by the side. After entering the under bust round measurements, I added 2 inches to it, which is the replacement for this dart. And I'll come to my waist measurement and do the same thing. So I'll enter my waist measurement and I'll add 2 inches as a replacement of my dart. Then I'll draw a line to connect all the markings. After that, I'll add 1 inch allowance by the side for stitching. The marker is my original line, while the pencil is my allowance. So now it's time to draft my neckline. The neckline I want to use for this dress is asymmetric neckline. So already have my neck width, which is 4 inches. I'm going to come down by 6 inches. I'll just mark the 6 inches down. So I'm going to use a tracing wheel to trace out this neckline I just marked, so that when I open it up, I'll know where my neckline is, and I will now draw the asymmetric neckline. I'll open it up. So I'm going to cut this out now. Where I marked red is where I'll be cutting out. This is what we have. I'm going to keep the 2 side piece aside and then I'll work on the neckline. To get the asymmetric neckline, I'm going to draw a line from the left neck width to the right neck depth. You can draw it whichever way you want. It depends on where you want your asymmetric neckline to face. This is it. I may not want it to be exactly straight, so I'll use a curve. I'll give it a little curve, just very little curve, like this. That's my neckline right there. I'm not going to cut this out yet until I place it on my fabric. Then I'll cut it out together with my fabric. Now I'll now keep the front pattern aside and we move to the back pattern. This is for the back pattern. First of all, I'm going to mark out 1 inch by the side here for my zipper allowance. So this is my zipper allowance. The zipper allowance is on the center back and the line is where all my measurements is going to start from. So first of all, I'll enter my shoulder measurement divided by 2, starting from the zipper allowance line. And then where I marked my shoulder measurements, I'll go down by 1 inch for shoulder slope. I'll come to the center back and mark my neck width, starting from the zipper line. The neck width I use for the front is 4 inches, so I'm using the same for the back. And I'll draw a line to connect the neck width and the shoulder slope. From the shoulder slope, I'm going to enter my armhole measurement. The armhole measurement I use for the front is the same thing I will use for the back, which is 8 inches. I'm going to confirm my shoulder measurements, so I'll have a straight line. I'll draw a straight line. So now I'm going to draw another line this other side, but I have to confirm and make sure that I have a straight line. So I'll measure from the top of the paper, being the starting line, to where the armhole measurement stop, and then I'll mark the same thing this other side. And then I'll connect the marking to have a straight line. This will serve as my chest line. At the chest line, I'm going to enter my bust measurement divided by 4. Then I'll come to the armhole line and look for the midpoint. Where I have the midpoint, I'll go in by 0.25 inches. And I'm going to draw a straight line to connect with the shoulder slope first of all. And then I'll draw a curve from that midpoint to meet my bust measurement that I entered. So that's our back armhole. So now I'm going to enter my full length, my waist point for the back, which is also my full length. Remember I told you I'm going to join these to a skirt to form a gown. So I'm going to draw a straight line. The difference between the front waist line, the front waist point and the back waist point is 2 inches. So the front is longer than the back by 2 inches. And I know I did not mark that out, or I did not only debust that on my front pattern. I will later mark it out after cutting so that it will match up with the back pattern. I'm going to enter my waist measurement divided by 4 at the waistline. And then I'm going to look for the midpoint of my waist measurement. And where I have the midpoint, I mark it and then I'll measure what I have from the zipper line to the midpoint. And I'll mark the same thing on the chest line. Now I'm going to draw a straight line to connect the two marking. Then on this line, at the waistline, I'm going to mark ½ inch on both sides. Then I'm going to connect the ½ inch on both sides I just marked to the, and that's my back dart. This way I marked my waist measurement. So I'm going to replace this 1 inch for that at the side, so I don't have shortage after I cut out my fabric. So I replace the 1 inch. And then I'm going to add 1 inch allowance. So this is my waist measurement plus the 1 inch dart replacement and 1 inch for allowance. Then I'll come to my chest line and enter my bust measurement, and then I'll add 1 inch allowance. I already have my bust measurement, so I'll add 1 inch for allowance. And I'm going to draw a straight line. What I'll do next is to mark out my neck dip for the back. So my neck dip for the back is 1½ inch. So I'll mark the 1½ inch on the zipper line. I'm going to draw a curve to meet the neck width. And that's our back pattern. Then at the waistline, I'll go in by ½ inch. Then I'll connect the ½ inch to the waistline. This particular one is to remove the zip buck at the back. So I'm going to remove the same half an inch, this other at the zip side, and I'll connect it to the center bag. So I don't need to replace this particular dart, this zipper dart I just made now, because even if when after making your dress and you wear it, you're still going to have that bulge with that. So that bulge is what we eliminate. We don't need to replace it. So that's it for the back pattern, and this is where we are going to be cutting out. Where I'm using the red marker is where, yeah, is where we are going to be cutting out. The dart is not to be cut out, it's just to mark it on your fabric and then stitch it when sewing. I've cut out the back pattern and this is what we have. So we move over to cutting it on our fabric. So I finished cutting it out on my main fabric and this is what we have. I added half-inch allowance around the bust side. This is folded. This is folded into two. The center front is folded into two, and then the side front is two pieces, and this is the back pattern and it's two pieces as well. So now I'm going to keep the center front pattern aside, and I'll work on the side front. As you can see, the side front is longer than the side back. So in order for it to match up, I'm going to minus 2 inches down here. Remember, the back pattern is shorter by 2 inches. So I'm going to minus the 2 inches down here since I did not impute a bust dart. So I'll go up by 2 inches and mark. And then I'll come to the center here. Only on the pattern paper, I'll go in by half an inch and mark. And I'm going to draw a slant line, a diagonal line, to connect the two marking. Then I'm going to cut that part out. Both the front and back is equal now. I'll keep this aside. Then I'll go ahead and notch where we have our dart on the fabric so that I'll know where the dart starts from. I'll just give it a little notch on the two sides of the dart. I'm going to mark that point on the main fabric where the dart will stop. And that is it. Then I'm going to go ahead and place this on the lining I'm going to use, then cut it out. So I finished cutting out the lining and it's at the back of this fabric. As you can see. So I'll go ahead and iron a stay on the main fabric. I'll iron a stay on the main fabric and then paper stay on the lining. So this the main fabric. Iron and a stay on the front main fabric, as you can see. And for the back main fabric, I did not iron anything on it. It's only the plain fabric. And this is the lining. I iron a paper stay on the lining on the front fabric and the back fabric. So now I'm going to work on the front neckline. So I'm going to place the lining first and then I'll place the main fabric on top of it with the right side facing each other like this. And I'll place the pattern paper on top of it because I want to trace out this line, the neckline I drew earlier. I'm going to use a pin to hold the pattern paper on the main fabric so it doesn't shift when I'm cutting. So I've pinned it down. You have to be sure that the angle is facing the side that you want it to face before you cut it out. Like my one, it's going to be on the right hand side of my dress. So that's the side that it's facing now. So I'm going to cut it out following this line that I drew earlier. I finished cutting it and this is what the neckline is like. This is what I'll be using to pad bust. It's called bust pad. So if you don't want to use this thing, maybe you're a busty person and you don't want to use the breast pad, you can use a wadding to create your own pad. But I'll be using the foam. Then to create the bust part, I will first of all mark out the under bust points. I'll come up to the neckline. I'll just come down like 1 inch and mark it. This way my bust part will start from and it will end right at my under bust point. For the side, I'll just go in from the midpoint here. I'll go in by 5 inch. Then I'm going to mark and it will stop right at the under bust. So this is what it is. I'm just going to pin it down. So I will not be confused when I want to stitch it together. I have to be sure that the two are in the right position. It's time to stitch this together. So first I'll pick one of these and I'll place it on the side. I'll make sure that the under bust align. That's where the padding stops. So I'll make sure that it's equal. And I'll use a pin to hold it. I'll take it to my machine and I'll stitch it together while I'll use my hand to control the pattern to make sure that they align together while stitching. After I finish stitching one side, I'll do the same thing to this other side. I've finished stitching the bust and this is what we have. I'll go ahead and trim off the excess part at the same side. I'll notch around the bust area so that there will be no bulge when I turn it to the right side. When you are notching, be careful not to cut into your seam. So you can see our bust is set. So I will also stitch the front lining as well, the same way I stitch the main fabric. I'm done stitching the lining. I'll go ahead and notch around the bust area as well. So I'm going to iron the seam, the bust area, and I'll bring in my tailor's arm. I made this tailor's arm myself. So if you want to know how I made this tailor's arm, comment below and I'll make a video. We are going to join our lining to the main fabric. I'll place the front fabric, the main fabric like this, and I'll place the lining on top with the right side facing each other. And then I'll take it to my machine and stitch around the neckline using 1/2 inch. And I'll stitch the side, the two sides, and that will be all. I'll not stitch the armhole because it's going to have a sleeves. It's a dress and it's going to have a sleeve, so I don't need to stitch around the armhole. So I'll just turn only the neckline and the two sides. So I'm done joining this at the neckline and the sides, and I will just notch the ankle so that when I turn it to the right side it will not bulge. So just a little notch, and be careful not to cut into your seam. I'll turn this to the right side now. So this is the right side of the fabric and you can see the asymmetric neckline. I'll just go ahead and iron the neckline and the sides, the seam I just made. I'll also add the hemming gum to inside of the neckline part of this dress to hold the neck together so it will not shift and the lining will not come out when wearing it. I'm done pressing the neckline. You can see how clean it is. It came out very well. So I'm going to keep this aside and then bring in the back pattern so we work on it. So this is the back pattern and this is the lining for it. I did not iron any stay on the main fabric because it's optional. I'm just going to sew the lining to the main fabric. I'll first of all hold the dart where I marked. I'll hold the dart on both sides of the pattern. I'll stitch the dart, and then I'll also make a dart on the lining. Then after the dart, I'm going to stitch it. I'll keep it right side facing each other like this, and I'll stitch the neckline and the two sides, that's the zip side and the side of the fabric. I'll not stitch the armhole and the shoulder point. I'm done stitching. See my darts. I hold that on both the lining and the main fabric, and I stitch the neckline and the side. You can trim off the darts if you want to, but I won't trim mine. So I'll turn this to the right side and give it a quick press. When pressing the neckline, I'll also add a gum stay inside the neckline area so that it will hold the lining and the fabric together. I'm done pressing it and move to the next stage, which is joining the front and the back together. But first, I'll place the back pattern, the two pieces, with the right side facing each other like this, and I'm going to stitch it down at the zip area using the zip allowance I added, using a loose stitch because I'm still going to lose it later and to fix my zipper. I'm done joining it at the zip area, so I'm going to open it up like this, and then I'll bring in the front pattern. I'll keep it on top with the right side facing each other just like this, and then I'll stitch the shoulder together. When you place both the front and the back piece on top of each other, and you make sure that the shoulder line aligned very well, and then you open up the lining of the front pattern and take it over the back pattern like this. So the back pattern is just going to be inside, and then you're going to run a stitch to hold the two together, and then you do the same thing for this other side. So I'll go over and stitch it now and then bring it back. I'm done joining it at the shoulder line, and you can see my shoulder is very neat both inside and outside. So the next thing is to join it by the side. So I'm going to stitch this together by the side. I'll stitch the two sides and bring it back. I'm done stitching the two sides, and our princess dart bustier is ready. For the zip, I'm not going to be adding zip yet because I'm going to join this to a skirt to form a gown. So after I'm done making the skirt and joining everything, I'll now install the zipper. So this is all. If you want to see the gown I'm making with this, subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification bell so you get notified when I post the video of the gown. All right, thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.